It is April 17th, 2026, and I'm sitting outside on the patio and right down here in downtown Houston, fourth largest city in the nation. And what are we going to be doing? We're going to be talking about relationship dynamics and, making men better, making women better, and and we're going to use criminal cases to do that today. I'm going to talk about the Daniel and Krug case, and dual mating strategy. Know it and be the alpha bang, and don't be the beta provider. And alpha bang is that can last short term. It can be long term, but be that sexual demon for her, the one that she wants physically, the one that she wants that man's presence, the one that she admires, who he is, or just a swag about him that she just can't, can't, live without, So anyway, but in this case today, we're going to use the Daniel Krug case as a cautionary tale of the beta male. And you don't want to be the beta male. And I think, his wife was on the verge of getting a divorce. And I think he lived under, we just did a case recently regarding that. It was here in Baytown, which was, if I can't have her, nobody can have her. She is mine. That's big time beta. But anyway, but Daniel Krug, where did they live? I can't remember what state. I think it was Arizona, but it's not important, the state. No, it's Colorado. I'm going to say Colorado. But Blumenfield, was it? But not important to the facts. So we got Danielle and Krug, okay? And apparently they've got two kids. They've got, she is an engineer. And they had, she was in the documentary, and, she seemed very smart and had a very good personality, very laid back, easygoing. I liked her personality. Seemed like a real cool chick. Very smart though, and with it, I liked her. And when I saw her, I was like, "You're too good for this guy." Not even appearance-wise, because she was just kind of, not to be rude, she's a kind of average chick, but her personality kind of just, it struck me as very interesting, very pleasant. So, it's for lack of a better term, but anyway, and I don't know if I've seen more of a dweeb, dork, loser, beta, idiot. I really don't. Than this guy, Daniel Krug. This guy, he's up there, if there's a Hall of Fame for losers, he's up there, big time. But, so anyway, I don't see how he ever got a woman, but they had two kids. They were living the American dream, two kids, white picket fence. I'm not sure how long they've been married. I think it was double digits. But, from what I understand from her parents, who really loved her a lot, they said that she was about to leave him. And, we'll just spoiler alert, she's murdered by Daniel Krug, her husband, in the end. But, yeah, she said that, the parents said that she was about to leave him. So, that was near the end. So what do we know from that? Well, it usually means she's checked out. They're not having sex. Those are your indicators. She's, unwilling to do things with you. She's kind of unpleasant to be around. She doesn't want, you to touch her. She's just not women are just not that engaged when they're kind of done with you. So, and I know, and men know this. Men can feel that, And Daniel Krug was feeling it. So, he didn't like it. He wanted her, right? So instead of, manning up and, maybe taking care of things or whatever and leading the whole thing, or, having a discussion with her and saying, hey, let's get this together, whatever, being direct, the biggest beta male in the world takes this whole indirect route, trying to manipulate her into maybe thinking he's her hero or something. Because, and the reason I say that is, in that kind of sense, is he creates a fake stalker that is stalking him and is stalking her. and he makes the guy out to be, I think it was Anthony, because that was like a former boyfriend in high school, her first boyfriend, and he probably had issues with that guy, but she probably had other dudes, right? But yeah, I mean, this Anthony guy is reaching out to her on Facebook, but it's really Daniel, and he's like, hey, baby, you want to get together, or maybe he was just testing her, her faithfulness. But she was totally faithful too. She's like, no, idiot, I don't want, and the behavior she displayed, she was so a good wife. In this moment, she could have been like some checked out chick that was like, hey, who's that? Nope, she was a good girl. And she wanted the situation taken care of, because this guy's like sending her weird messages, and he was also like telling her, I'm gonna find your husband, and he takes a picture of himself. Now, you don't realize it till the end, that you don't reveal it, but he gets a camera, he puts it, I guess, in selfie mode. I don't even know if there's selfie modes, but and he puts it on a car next to his car, and as he gets out, he takes a picture of himself, and he makes it seem like the stalker has stalked him all the way to his office. I mean, the level of manipulation this guy is going, and when she's kind of not responding, she's kind of just ignoring him, he's like up in the ante. You better answer me, bitch, this is Anthony, whatever. And he calls the police and says, some guy just broke into our house, and he got out of the garage. I didn't get a good look at him, He was guy, maybe white, Hispanic, maybe black. Which one? He's all three, because he doesn't want to pin it down, right? So it was fake. He's making a fake report. So, when he goes and does his dirty deeds, well, this guy's stalking him, and I did call and report that guy that, I didn't really see run out of my garage, and didn't really take anything. He's the one that did these dirty deeds. And so, but she's proactive. His wife is proactive. She's doing everything, you should do, security-wise. She's, gone to the police, and she's provided them all the evidence that she has. She's working with them. She got a concealed carry license. She's carrying a pistol in her purse. She's, like I said, and she's actively pursuing this case. So, if an arrest needs to be made and, this guy starts to get too weird, the police can go in. They were in the process of getting search warrants for, I can't remember whose phones. They were going to get hers, or I think her husband's, and then this other guy's or something. But yeah, those take a while when you're just doing a stalking case. Trust me, I know, it's taking months. But anyway, and they had interviewed her. They had interviewed her husband, but that wasn't really providing any evidence to who it was, because it's her husband. but anyway, and everybody knows, about this. I mean, she made 3 or 4, the patrol officers came out to her house 3 or 4 times, because she was, if she ever saw anything or heard anything, she was being proactive in her safety. There's nothing more she could have done. She was serious about, protecting herself, and but the problem is you can't protect yourself when you don't realize it's the person you trust that's living in your own house. She can't protect herself from her husband. And that's why, if there's any ladies listening, and men too, that person you decide to put next to you in your house or in your relationship, this is why I do this, you need to know, who they are. They need to desire you, and if the relationships start going bad, there's nothing more dangerous than a surreptitious betrayal of someone that would betray you, because that's what this guy was. He was the most dangerous person in her life, and she's buying guns and doing all this stuff, and it's all along it's her husband who she doesn't suspect. And if it's someone you don't suspect, they're going to be able to, surprise attack you, and basically, take you down. And that's what he did, right? But yeah, so, and so when he realizes, so what he's starting to kind of realize, his wife kind of realizes this might be him. This loser might be doing this, And she even asked him, "Hey, are you the guy? Are you the stalker?" And he's like, "Oh hell no! Only losers would do that. It's him. You know." And so he kind of realizes, it's him, and his whole attempt to get her to bond with him as her, protector wasn't working either. And this guy, the way he talked in the interviews, I must get her protected. I mean, it was so performative and just dorky, weak. And that's why his wife was probably disgusted. And I say, they're disgusted of you. And so he didn't want to be outed to be the stalker, and he didn't want his wife to leave him. If I can't have her, no one can. So this guy, he thinks, I would say he's a narcissist or sociopath, the dark triad, Machiavellianism. He's got probably all three, but they lack remorse. They lack, insight, meaning they can't read a room. They don't see how other people are seeing them, and that tended to be true because in the interviews, he was, just the way he was acting, you can kind of tell, look, bro, you don't realize you're looking kind of guilty. You know what I mean? He thinks he's making a case, No, not at all. But, that little smoke over there in the whatchamacallit, oh, it's kind of on, I guess, I don't know. But anyway, that's the on the patio. But anyway, so yeah, but I digress. Sorry about that. I was like, fire. Yeah. So what happened, right? And they find out basically the emails of the stalker are being sent from his computer at work, and he still tries to deny it. They find out the selfie came from a phone he had taken in selfie mode. And they went and actually talked to this ex-boyfriend who did say he loved her very much and she was an awesome person. Nothing weird. He was just like, no, she was awesome. I loved her the most out of all the girls I've ever had. And the guy was nice. He was a little, kind of autistic almost, but he was very nice about her. And he, not in a weird way. He's like, yeah, Christelle. I think she called her Crystal, but it was Crystal basically. But Christelle or something like that. Anyway, it's the way she says her name, but. No, he said she was, his best love that he ever had. And this guy was like in his 40s, But yeah, so, and again, like I said, I caught a vibe from her as far as just her personality. But yeah, so again, he did it, But anyway, so on the day of the murder, he, basically, she takes the kids to school and she comes back home. And they were pretty well off because she was an engineer and he was a computer guy somewhere. She comes back home. This idiot, or whatever you want to call him, this beta male. Beta males are dangerous because when they lose control, they get dangerous. And that's what they did say. I want to make this point. Betas are the most dangerous men. And they're the most dangerous when they lose control. Understand that. Men and women, understand that. Guys, with your guy friends, when they lose control of the situation, they're going to be weirdos. And they're going to be dangerous. They don't like losing control, and that's what they said about this guy. He used to get really, really angry, and his face would turn red. He'd lose control, like he'd just lose his crap, Very intense anger. And I think it was his sister-in-law said it was when he was losing control. Yep, and that's what happened here. So he goes on the day before he kills his wife. He goes, digressing a little bit, but he goes on. They caught him doing searches of, can a hit to the head cause a concussion? How can you knock someone out? How much force does it take to, make someone unconscious? So basically, I think he probably used a baseball bat or something, but he got her from behind and just whacks her in the head, apparently. That's what they said. That's what the medical examiner said. And, I guess gets her one or two times and then a couple more times on the ground. But that's what ended up kind of being her demise, the blunt force trauma to the head. And then, as a passion, because he's pissed, he does a stab to the heart. I mean, what a beta, what a loser, dude. I mean, just such a loser. Then he's already set her phone up to send him a message while he's going to work. Because he wants an alibi. He's going to kill her. He killed her in the garage, and he's going to want an alibi as he goes to work. And so he's programmed her phone to text him in 10 minutes, hey, are you going to get the kids today, or some message like that, and he responds back, but he's not getting any response, you know. Well, this diabolical loser doesn't realize that when they get a search warrant for your phone, they're going to know that you did a scheduled delayed text, which it shows. So obviously, it even incriminates him more. Nice try, loser. But anyway, so what he does is, when he still thinks he's doing the perfect murder, he goes to work, and like a couple hours go by, and he's like, okay, I can't find her. So this is what these idiots do, that do harm to people. They have to have someone else find them, right? So they're like, hey, could you go check if But anyway, so that's what he does. He calls the police. I'm trying to call my wife and text my wife, and I've been trying to get a hold. Like, I'm just saying, I digress. Has anybody not been able to get a hold of somebody and not call the police? But he calls the police. I can't get a hold of her. Can someone check on her? Which, again, that's always going to make the 22 years of law enforcement. That's always going to make the police suspicious of you when you're doing that. Anyway, so a police officer goes over there, knocks on the door, doesn't get an answer, and he apparently killed her in the garage. So the police officer gets his cruiser, and they have those like buddy bumper deals. He gets on top of that, and he looks in the window, and he can see. And he kicks in the door, and she's, he tries to do CPR, and this is all taking place at their house, and she's in the garage, and a second officer comes to help him do the CPR a couple minutes later, and family and neighbors are showing up now, because of the commotion, right? And lo and behold, guess who else is showing up? Daniel Krug. And dude, this one girl, she was great. She's like a victim's advocate. Some departments will send out a victim's advocate. They kind of help you because they know you're in an emotional time, so they'll help you kind of make it through whatever you need to do. And that's, so she was assigned to him, right? So she's kind of like, oh, I guess this is whatever. And so she's like, I saw him coming down the hill. I saw him crying, blah, blah, blah. And he's just laying out this, like, cry of, like, it sounded like a woman, dude, for, like, 10 minutes. This fake, he did it. You did the murder, and you're fake crying out here? Oh, my God, dude. And then he's doing this cry. She said he was doing a cry all the way back to the station. He was crying, and women detest weakness. This guy was so weak. The way she wasn't saying it, but she was saying it, like, basically, like, this was a loser. Of how much crying he was doing. And again, he doesn't have insight, doesn't realize that people are going to be onto his crying, right? So yeah, he didn't want to be direct with his wife. He was showing too much weakness. She was done with him. She was, he wasn't her alpha bang, apparently, and so he tried to do this whole manipulation, and he thought he could manipulate, the whole murder to where he'd get away with it. And he still wasn't giving it up. And it wasn't until the end. He got convicted. He got convicted of her murder. He's doing life in prison without possibility of parole, and an extra 9 years for his fake stalking crap. Good, right? So he's doing life without parole plus 9 for the stalking. So he's good to go, and as he should be, right? And finally on it, he's it's just, he never admitted it. He's all he keeps trying to tell people, like, but there was so much evidence against him, like circumstantial. There was so much, right? And finally, he's calling his family like every day from the jail, and so after like a month or two, his brother answers the phone, and he's like, you can hear him, talking, and he's calling from the jail. He's serving his life sentence, and it's only been like 2 months though, and his brother's like, hey, Daniel, we're trying to support you, buddy, but I'm trying to use every creative bone in my body to, make it not you. That I'm sorry, I'm struggling, man. Like, he's basically telling them, you did it, dude, you did it. And they were having a hard time supporting him after that. He was a beta, he's like, I need my kids out of Colorado. They might be in danger. The killer's still out there. That was what, using your computer and your cell phone to do the selfie, and to do fake stalking, and searching how to hit someone in the head, and that's what you did, and just all that, man, all of it. But yeah, and so and this will be pretty easy case today. But what do we learn? And I just did this on Charlie Kirk. I did a Charlie Kirk thing just a minute ago, but And what I say is beta is not attractive, gentlemen. Weakness, it's weakness, okay? So if you're displaying beta behavior, it's a weakness. Figure out why, right? And, but yeah, so, um, but in this case, that's why his wife was leaving him. He was beta. He wasn't alpha bang. You got to be that. And like I said, and I won't go into it on this one. Research how to be the alpha guy. Assertive, dominant man. And it's that different for every woman. Everyone. There's not one blueprint. Don't get stuck in these. Ruts of it's black and white. No, there's tons of gray in dating. But you want best practices. You want a what does Rolo say? But like best practices and a predictable framework. So if I do this, I should get these outcomes. That's kind of what you want. If I do these things, then I know girls will like this, right? You need to learn how to do that, right? And that by one, that is dating, but two, that is reading books. Three, these videos will help, right? But anyway, but yeah, this guy Daniel, ultra beta. The weakness on him, the pathetic nature of him, was making turning his wife away from him, and he didn't have the balls to fix it the right way. He had to go about this whole fake, manipulated stalker. Had he maybe just talked to her, and then maybe got the right answer, like, hey, and he ruined his life. He's now in when what we always say is, you attracted what you feared. He didn't want to lose her, but he lost her, and now he's in jail, the rest of his life. So, don't do this, beta behavior gets you nowhere. This indirectness. There's not just one woman for you guys, and and here's that term I always say: kill the beta before the beta kills you. Okay, if you're feeling you got that beta behavior, get rid of it. Be that alpha dog. Always try to be that alpha dog. And again, container words. These are placeholders. We know there's not no true alpha and beta, but if you're having weaknesses places, fix those. Right? But that's the Daniel Krug case. I hope you get something out of this one. And I'm gonna go hit the gym on this awesome Friday morning in Houston, Texas. Y'all have a good one. See you on the next one.